Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Other Side, where we talk about trials, triumphs, and everything in between, because that's where the magic lies, how we got through it. The reason why I started this podcast is because they were what got me through my trials. So, welcome once again. Please like, subscribe. Today, we have Jeanie Sauder. She is a health and wellness coach out of Whittier, California. We met at the chamber, and I am so lucky and grateful to have her because she is going to give us a great story as well as some awesome information for you to start living a better life. So, welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my
So
gosh.
happy.
Thank you. I'm so glad you accepted. You know, when we first met, you shared some of your story and me being a mental health advocate, you had shared about your two brothers, right?
A brother and a
A,
sister.
yeah, a
Yeah.
brother and a sister. And it just, it just really hit me hard. And I couldn't believe that I lived through a suicide and you had to live through too. And
hmm
I couldn't even imagine having to try and just process all of that. So I think I like to start with people's childhoods because that kind of creates who we are. And it might also give us some insight on your siblings and, maybe not. But how did you grow up?
Okay, so I'm from a family of six children. I'm the youngest of
Oh.
six. One of my older siblings died before I was born. She passed away on Christmas Day at 15 months of
Oh,
age, which
wow.
was very hard and, obviously traumatic for my parents.
Absolutely.
Um, but they forged on, and a very conservative family environment, if you will. Grew up in a very, very small town in Colorado
Oh,
where
okay.
everyone knows your name and knows what you're going to do before you do it.
At least they think they do anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. But being the youngest, I like to say that I observed what my older siblings did,
Yes.
and by doing so, learned what not to do. So, so I really, my childhood was a wonderful experience. So
Nice.
grateful for the
Yes.
parents I have. And yeah, I mean, some incidents along the way that
Right.
really shape us.
Yes.
And um, maybe, I had a personal happening. It also happened to two of my sisters, my other two sisters, where at a very young age, my grandmother, I'm just going to put it out there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
my grandmother molested me and my two older siblings too. This
Wow.
happened independently. And I was so young that I didn't know what was going on, but I knew deep inside it wasn't right
Yeah.
what she was doing
Right.
to me. And I just stifled that. I put it away, and it was a memory that I didn't want to hang on to.
Yeah.
And so subconsciously, it just went back, somewhere in a deep, dark
We
place.
get really good at just putting it in that little trunk and putting that lock on it
Like it
and
didn't
like
happen,
it didn't happen.
right?
Yeah. And because why do you want to think about it? It'll create so much drama and will they believe you and it's your grandma and that's just so
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
I couldn't even imagine how you could try and process that. So how old were you at that time?
I was probably about 6 or 7 years
Okay.
old, and to this day, I can now vividly remember what she did to me and
Yeah.
how it felt.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because, like I said, I just stifled it, put it away
Mhm.
like it didn't happen. Years later, when I was a freshman in college, my mom called me on the phone and confronted me with it and described a little bit. My older sister had come to my mom and dad to tell them what had
Mm.
happened to her.
How old was she at that time?
That when she told mom and
Yeah.
dad, or when she was,
When she told your mom and dad?
um,
Because you were in college, so
yeah,
you're what, 18?
she was probably early 20s.
The reason why I ask is because that just shows how long she even waited to
Yeah,
say something. I mean, till she was 20.
yeah.
Do you know what prompted her to
I don't.
finally?
I don't.
Interesting. I
Other than
wonder.
it was her personal journey to
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
address it
Right.
and learn how to get beyond it.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you ever talk about it amongst each other as siblings?
N no,
before?
no,
No.
no, not that I recall,
Which
no.
kind of probably made it easier to continue to happen, huh? Because at
Right,
least you might have been able to kind of join forces at that point
right.
at a younger age. I mean, you never know, but yeah, I just like the audience to know like it happens, right? And it happened amongst you and you were all there at the same time together and yet you neither one of you even spoke to each other about it.
No, I mean, young children like that, it's like, what would you say? And I was probably feeling embarrassed
Mhm.
too and
Mhm.
not understanding what she was doing or why.
Right.
And certainly my parents at that age had not discussed any, events like that that
Right.
could happen. It was way beyond their comprehension
Which
too.
is another thing people need to know, right? Is we need to have those uncomfortable situations with our children. Because if they don't know that if somebody makes them feel uncomfortable, my grandson is 5, mind you. I have those conversations with him all the time. Sometimes of course, you try and be careful how you say it, but I'm very clear if anybody ever makes you feel uncomfortable and nobody gets to see you naked, nobody takes down your underwear, and
Right, right.
as it seems like he's only, but no, you have to have those conversations so they feel safe that when somebody does make them feel uncomfortable or something doesn't feel right, they know like, oh, I wonder if this is what they were talking about, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's sad that it's come to
I
this,
know.
but you're right. It is a difficult conversation
Especially
that,
because nobody ever thinks that they have to have it when you're going to your grandma's house.
no kidding. Yeah.
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 So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but it's like have a talk with your children. So go on. I'll let you finish your story. So
Um,
your sister, you were at your sister finally told your
my sister told my
Mhm.
parents, my mom called me and asked if it had happened. I denied it. I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. She pressed me. And at that point, I just broke down
Wow.
and told her what I remembered that when my brother and sister and I would go over to spend a week with her at her home
Mhm.
because we were going to be attending vacation Bible school in the summer.
With grandma.
She didn't go to
Oh,
vacation
okay.
Bible school, but she was a very religious person. She
Mhm.
presented herself that way. And we were so excited, to go someplace different than at home. And she lived right down the block from a swimming pool, and that was really cool
Yeah.
too. But towards the end of the day, she would get 3 straws and put them in her hand, and whoever drew the shortest straw had to sleep with her. And I
Mm.
remember just this overwhelming feeling of dread when I drew the short straw,
Yeah.
because I knew what would happen, and then that reminds me that it had happened more than once,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
for her to put a whole game behind it and
yeah,
everything, which is even
very twisted. um, so fast forward after my mom and dad had learned about this from my sister and me, they asked all of my other siblings,
Mhm.
my 4 remaining siblings, and of those, my 2 brothers said that it did not happen to them.
Mm.
My 2 sisters acknowledged that it did happen to them as well. So my parents reached out to my father's brothers and invited them over to tell them what they
Mhm.
had learned. And it's interesting that all of the brothers, my dad is one of 8 boys,
Mm.
um, all of them denied it, said that there is no way that the grandmother would do this and that, as children, that we were just looking for attention and that we were lying.
But you weren't children anymore. You
No.
were in your
Yeah.
late
Yeah. A
teens,
young
early
adult.
20s.
Young
Yes,
adult.
yes.
I can't imagine the sheer pain that my parents felt.
Oh, yes. I couldn't either because as a parent, you're left with this overwhelming guilt. Like you set your children up to
Yeah.
be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But, that's another thing people need to know. Like we can't live with that shame and that guilt if we had no idea. And you think they're in the safest place with their grandparents. I mean, in my mind, there should be no safer place than with your grandparents,
Definitely.
and so I couldn't even imagine being in their position. And so Was your grandmother still alive at this point, or had she passed by?
She was still alive at that point, and I, you know, didn't see much of her, chose
Mhm.
not to.
Of course.
But I guess the one saving grace from this whole story, that maybe brought some peace of mind to my mom,
Mhm.
is that one of my uncles is a Lutheran minister. And he too was denying that this would happen. But years later, he wrote a letter to mom and dad apologizing. He
Wow.
said that he had done a lot of research on child molestation
Mhm.
and that he had come to the conclusion that this could have happened. And he asked him for forgiveness. And yeah, so at least that may have provided them some comfort at the
Yeah.
time.
Acknowledgement
Yeah,
that their feelings are valid. I mean, that's all we need to know, right? Our feelings are valid. That's what I tell everybody when somebody comes to you in pain. It's like your feelings are valid. They may be
definitely.
a little twisted, but they're valid, right? Like we have to validate what they're feeling because we all take things differently too and process things differently. So do you think that somewhat drove you into or kind of catapulted you into what you do or helps you with what you do today?
Oh my gosh, what I do today has helped me in ways that I never knew was possible.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what I don't want to get off subject, but I don't want to forget how you help others heal as well. But I do also want to touch on your brother and your sister just a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
And my two siblings, my brother Robert was a year older than me, and my sister Patty was 2 years older than me. Mom referred to us as the three little kids
No.
growing up. But Um, Robert and I, in particular, were pretty close.
Mhm.
We did a lot together during high school, and he would drive me to school, and
Of
just
course.
things like
Yeah.
that. And as um, we grew older, he stayed in in the community where we grew up, and both my sister and I moved away for the bigger city. you know?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but both of them were wonderful people in their own light, and very focused on their families and their inner passion, what drove them. My brother was very giving to everyone, volunteered. He was a volunteer EMT
Oh.
for the local fire department. He was very active in his church,
Oh.
loved his family. His one grandson at the time was the apple of his eye.
Oh.
He was a marathoner. I don't know how many marathons he ran, but
Wow.
significant. And just an all-around good guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in August of 2020, is when he took his life, and
Mm.
total shock to all of us. And still, the question of why
Yeah.
and how could one come to that decision to take his life?
So there was no indication.
None.
Did something come up after that maybe like a secret he was holding on to that was just
We're
torturing him?
No, we're still trying to figure that out. And his best friend, from early
Mhm.
childhood to the day that he died, um, has said over and over again, I feel like I could have helped him if, because he said, I walked him back, in difficult situations, walked him back off a cliff
Oh.
before. Not that he had shown that
Mhm.
intention to take his life,
Right.
but so many people were touched by his passing and still to this day
Yeah.
have that big question mark of why.
How long has it been?
Um, well, it was 4 years
Oh,
in
it's
in
4 years.
August.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, yeah, that's tragic. It had to leave his wife just devastated. I mean, it does. I know, right? It leaves everybody devastated because you don't know, but he was a marathoner, he served. So, it sounds like maybe that's how he was trying to cope possibly
That's
with.
an interesting point.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of people, right? They
Yeah.
exercise, they change their diet, they serve. I serve when I'm depressed, down. I serve always now because life is just what it is, and
Yeah.
it's my passion. But that's how it started. It started because I was down, and it's like I needed somewhere to put this
To
energy.
lift you. Yeah.
Yes, and
I get
just
that.
to, yeah, help. I had this need to help, and when in helping, it helped me so much. I was like, this is the answer. Like,
Yeah.
this is the secret. This is the answer. And for me, and that's why I do this. And
Mhm.
because also sharing the stories and talking about it was also healing. And I want other people to feel that healing. And I'm just so sorry about your brother. I couldn't imagine having a child left,
Yeah.
you know?
Thank you, Anita.
Yeah. So how's your nephew doing? He had a son, you said.
He has a daughter and a
A
son,
daughter and a son.
both young adults, and the daughter has a grandson, a child,
Okay.
and they're thriving.
Oh,
Thankfully,
good, good.
gratefully, they're doing really, really well.
Oh, beautiful. And how about your sister? What was that story?
So my sister, her decision was with different circumstances than my brother.
Mm.
Again, someone who was very much lived her life out loud,
Mhm.
a very, very much a giver to people, but had issues within our immediate family too.
Mm.
So during the latter part of her life, I really didn't have much contact with her.
Okay.
She is one who has always struggled with health issues since she was a young adult, had so many health issues. And I'm told that she was diagnosed with early dementia.
Oh, wow.
And she made the decision that she did not want to live that way. So she, with the assistance, support of her husband and a woman with the title of a death doula, created a scenario where she would stop eating and drinking on purpose. And this was her decision. It was very much thought through. Um, the day of her death, her husband published a website that tells the story of her journey and why she did this. It was all during COVID, right?
Oh.
But I think it was January 5th of 2021. She, with the support of the death doula and her husband, stopped eating and drinking. And it took, I think, about 12 days before she passed.
Wow. That's crazy.
It really was shocking to me because
It just seems like
it's still
such.
hard for me to understand, and I mean, it's for one thing, it definitely shows the strength of her character,
Yeah,
right?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely, to continue and to know that this is why you're doing it. I mean, there's a lot of other ways you can just get it done quickly.
Quickly, yeah,
Yeah, for so that's 12 days to a lot of thinking.
yeah,
I couldn't imagine what goes through your mind in the 12 days before you choose
hmm
to go,
hmm
because they say most people commit suicide, it's 7 seconds, and a lot of them change their mind.
hmm
They or if they were to change their mind, they don't have time.
right,
And she had time,
yeah.
and she did not.
And this is
So,
something I believe that was in the works for a long, long
mm,
time.
do you well, it was because of the dementia. So it wasn't really tied to what happened when you were little.
No, but that could have been. We all have different issues,
Mhm.
trauma that happen at different parts, different times in our life. So, it could have been something that she was still dealing with and hadn't found resolution
Right.
to it yet. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing with suicide. It just leaves everybody with so many questions.
hmm
That's what makes it so difficult because we want to help
hmm
and we want to fix, and there's just so many times that we can't,
Yeah.
and we have to be able to come to peace with that. I,
Yeah.
I literally I was on the phone when I got here, you saw, and I was talking to my girlfriend, and her sister just passed.
Oh.
They just found her in a hotel, and she was gone. So they don't even know how or why, but they were on the outs and a lot had happened, family situation, and she's like, "I just feel so bad." And I was like, "I get it, but you can't.
Yeah.
There's nothing for you to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
She made her choice,
Yeah.
and we all have choices." And I know it's easier said than done, but it's also something that we really need to come to terms with, that we can't fix and we can't help everybody.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
yeah, because the sooner we're able to process that and believe it, the better off we are because we're able to live in peace.
Mhm.
And that's what we need to live a healthy life, is to be
Mhm.
in peace. And so how have you come to resolution or resolve these types of feelings for yourself with your sister? You didn't talk to her, which, I'm sure doesn't make it easier, but it does. It makes it a little easier. Your brother, you were so close, so I'm sure that was much more difficult
Yeah.
to handle. So what did you do to process your pain? How did you get through that?
A lot of the strength that I have has been mirrored by my parents.
Okay.
My dad is deceased about 6 years,
Hmm.
but my mom is 89 years old. She
Wow.
lives with me now, and my
Yes.
fiance. Um, but just watching them through both of these incidents and how they really dug deep and relied
Yeah.
upon their faith to get them through,
I love that.
has been incredible. Incredible. Yeah. And I think my sister's choice was easier to understand because she left us with her story,
Hmm.
that website
Hmm.
that is helping people hopefully
Yeah.
understand her choices and why she did it.
Hmm.
My brother's choice is something that we just can't make sense of.
Yeah.
So, but you touched on a key thing, Anita, is learning to not worry about those things that we can't control.
Right.
Such a simple concept,
I
right?
know. I know, but so difficult to do because we all want to save everybody.
Yeah.
And I mean not everybody, but if you live in service, you do. And so when you can't, it makes it very difficult
Yeah.
sometimes. My niece is a CNN, and she just I remember her, a little girl.
Yeah.
She'd always be bringing the drinks. "What do you need? What do you," I mean, she was 5, we started tipping her, and then, of course, everybody else wanted to bring the
Oh.
drinks, but but, now she's a CNN, and I see her every time her patients, they're at that point because that's who she takes care of, the elderly, and she goes through her moment, her
Yeah.
emotions. You're losing another one, and I mean, at least they're older. The elderly is a little more easier to deal with, but when you're dealing with the children and the kids and, young adults, it's
Yeah.
like you really want to help them. So, that brings us to what you do now.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what you do, right? You try and help people live a healthier life, but that also was brought on by you and your journey.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's start with that journey because, we went through that, and it's a lot, and,
Hmm.
but it does say a lot about you and your strength, and how you've gone through what you've gone through, and now why you try and help others, but it really isn't your story and how you became a nutritionist, right? So why don't you go there?
Sure. So, um, where to begin? As you mentioned, I am an optimal health and wellness coach.
Mhm.
The program has a weight loss component. So most of the people that come to me for weight loss,
Right.
right? But this program is far more than about weight loss. It's about personal development and really learning how to, for me, it was a way to really learn how to better manage stress in my life.
Okay.
Okay.
So were you overweight, or you just wanted to handle the stress? What was your actual situation like?
At the time, I was stressed out to the max. I was, yeah, carrying some extra pounds,
Mhm.
but I was dealing with, it seemed like event after event after event after
Yeah.
event where I
Yeah.
felt like I was not in control of anything.
Right.
I was in the midst of what turned out to be a 9-year divorce,
Mm.
very difficult. The passing of my two siblings and my father not long ago too. I was working in the insurance industry, recruiting people for an agency ownership opportunity.
Okay.
Had worked there for 6.5 years. And in January, a couple of years ago, we were working remotely from home. My boss called me and said, Jeanie, we need to jump on Zoom at 3 o'clock today. I knew something was up.
Mm.
He said, there's no easy way about this, but effective today, I've eliminated your job. And he said, to make it easier, I'll give you 2 months severance pay. And I understood it from a business perspective
Mhm.
because the insurance industry is going through a very tumultuous time.
Yeah.
But he handled it less than graceful.
Yeah.
But that's, how he rolls.
Yeah.
I immediately started reaching out to people that I had been working with
Mhm.
to let them know that this was my last day, to thank them for the time I had with them, and really just a professional contact courtesy to let them know I'd no longer be their point of contact. He figured out that I was emailing these people and called me just livid on the phone. He said, "You're not allowed to talk to anyone." I said, "This is just a professional courtesy that I'm
Well, yeah,
offering."
not to mention you created relationships. I mean, you're just supposed to dump them and
Go
like you fell
figure.
off the face of the earth. Yeah.
So in retribution, he cut my severance pay from 2 months to 1.
No. Oh, what a creep. I'm sorry I don't know him, but that's
But
pretty creepy.
you know that saying that one door closes
Yes.
and another opens?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So here I was. I felt like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
You remember Eeyore?
Yes. All depressed.
Walks around with his gray cloud,
Yes.
whoa, and just that down.
Yes.
I was Eeyore because of all these life events happening to
Yes,
me.
that's a lot in a short amount of time.
Through Facebook, and by the way, I had to move from the South Bay where I lived for 23 years, had raised my children in the South Bay, was very involved in the community and everything, but I could no longer afford to live there.
Ugh.
So that's when I moved to Whittier to be with my fiance, and
Oh.
absolutely love Whittier.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for us. We got you.
Um, anyway, I had seen through Facebook a very good friend of mine was posting a lot on Facebook,
Mhm.
and I've known her for well over 30 years. Her name is
Oh.
April. And I recognized that she had made some significant improvements in her life.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'd like to get together with April. So I reached out to her and we planned to get together for lunch, which we did. And when we sat down, she was across the table from me and she was just glowing.
Oh,
She had this aura about her.
yes.
I could tell that she had made some significant improvements in her health.
Mm-hmm.
She was one who has always struggled with her weight. And for the course of 30 years that I've known her, up and down, up and down, up and down, tried every crazy diet known to man, lost the weight, but then regained it and more. Right. But here she was not only looked vibrant, but so healthy.
Yeah.
And I was sitting across from her and I was crying. I was so stressed out. I couldn't
Aw.
just keep the emotion,
Yeah.
bottled up. And April.
And you knew she could take it because she looked so vibrant.
Yeah. Yeah. But she described to me her journey that it's about 9.5 years where she was introduced to the program that I coach.
Mhm.
She lost 40 pounds in 4 months.
Wow.
The key thing, though, Anita, is that she has kept it off
Yeah.
for now almost 10 years.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yes.
Incredible. And I was just looking at her and trying to admire
Yeah.
this new person and what she had accomplished. But I was so overwhelmed that the tears were just rolling.
Yeah.
And she said to me, Jeanie, we all have stress in our lives, but some of us learn how to deal with it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that was kind of harsh. That was kind of a harsh comment, but I was curious.
Because you were in it.
Yeah, I was curious and wanted to learn more. So I started the program shortly thereafter, thinking, I can lose 10 pounds or
Mhm.
so. I lost 23,
Wow.
which was awesome. But what I have gained, Anita, in this program, the personal development side, is techniques for me to better manage the stress in my life.
Yes.
And the ability, as you said earlier, to not be concerned about those things of which I have no control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's been It's been wonderful. I started coaching shortly thereafter, and I got to tell you, it's such a gift to be able to help people who, like I said, most of the people come to me, they need to lose weight
Yeah.
because they're unhealthy, and the doctor may have told them you need to
Mhm.
lose X amount of pounds. But then they soon learn that it's more about the mental
Yes.
journey and that we need to do the work internally to get to a better place emotionally.
Yeah.
And that journey is up to us individually.
Well, and I want to point something out. I didn't want to cut you off earlier when you were talking about it, but you said something very important. You said you made the call. You called her.
Yeah.
That's what most people don't do, right? They sit in there and stew in the grief
And
or in the problem instead of we have to search. We have to take that one step because that one step will lead to another step. It's led you to a new career
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and a healthier lifestyle because most people who don't deal with their stress and their internal things, it ends up being like you said, it comes out right in different ways. It'll come out in alcoholism, it'll come out in sometimes abuse. They just go become very sexual
Yeah.
and or whatever the case may be, but they find a vice, and it's usually an unhealthy vice. Overeating, just because it feels good. I love to eat. My friends tell me like it's a joke, like, "Oh, you love everything." It's like I love food, but I've learned to control my cravings
Right. Right.
because I don't want to be overweight and unhealthy. But I have to tell you, even though I watch what I eat and I look healthy, I do tell people I'm the fattest skinny girl you'll ever meet because I hide it well. And honestly, I'm 53 now, and lately I've been feeling a little more sluggish.
Mhm.
And I know it's still because of my diet,
Mhm.
but it's finding the right diet for you.
Mhm.
So that's where you come in,
Yeah.
right?
And what really sets our program apart is that we're not a traditional diet.
Yeah. You're more mindset focused.
Definitely. And we work with people to get to their goal weight.
Mm-hmm.
And in other programs, you may get a personal coach.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is that once you reach your goal weight, they say, "Congratulations, Anita. Bye bye."
Yeah.
And you're left to your own devices at that
Mm-hmm.
point. With our program, we work with them initially to get to their goal weight. And secondly, we work with them through transition to
Mm.
start reintroducing foods that are not recommended during the weight loss
What they're
phase.
gonna find when they're on the road all
Yeah.
day, and yeah, because that's the hardest part, especially me being in sales, fast food.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even when you go to a restaurant, it's hard to know what to get.
Yeah. And we guide our clients on how to make those better choices for themselves.
Awesome.
But it's up to them to do the mental gymnastics so that they are developing better habits
Mhm.
of health that will stick with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And on that note, the third part of our coaching experience is helping people get to optimal health, which means that we are with our clients for as long as they want to talk to us.
Mm.
There's no goodbye.
Yeah.
There's no goodbye.
Yeah. Nice. So how many clients are you currently working with?
Currently, I have about 15
Great.
clients, and I'm working with two of them who are interested in becoming coaches
Wow.
and helping people in their circle.
Yeah. So how would they go about doing that? They just after they go through the course, they can actually become a coach themselves?
Yeah, it's an apprenticeship type program
Mhm.
where kind of like three phase. We
Mhm.
do it for you,
Mhm.
we help you do it,
Mhm.
and then we watch you do it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You're never left to your own devices to
Yes.
figure it out. It's a wonderfully supportive community that's
Yes.
nationwide.
Yeah.
And the founder of the program um, founded this over 23 years ago. He is a medical physician and realized he was at the top of his game professionally 23 years ago. He was one of the top 10
Okay.
critical care surgeons in the United States.
Okay.
So he knew that he could use any piece of medical technology to save a person's life,
Mhm.
but he realized that he wasn't healing them because when after people left his ER, they went home and reverted to their same practices.
Yes, because it's all in the mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you get past that? How do you approach that?
I mentioned earlier that we have some simple techniques.
Mhm.
There's a lot of education that comes along with this program. Two of the techniques that really resonate with me is learning about not living in the drama triangle.
Oh, yeah. So many people do.
I'm guilty. I do it still today.
Yeah.
But the key thing is learning how to kind of sit in the observer's chair,
Mhm.
to observe your behavior, your choices,
Yes.
and to take ownership for those,
Ugh.
right? Um,
I have the perfect story. I do. Because, I said, "Oh," but I've done it, right? And I'll loop sometimes if I don't address it. And I've learned that about myself though. So I was at an event Saturday and I spoke at a mental health awareness event and this young girl came up to me and she told me her story, and then I was talking to another therapist, and I said, "Yeah, she just happened to be standing there, and I was like, "She just told me that, she tried to take her life at 9." And, we're having this conversation, and then I'm sitting there, and I'm like after I left, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. That's not my story to tell. That was
Right.
her story to tell." And so, I mean, literally, I would have went all month with that, but I saw the little girl again, and I went up to her, and I said, "You know what, honey? I'm so sorry for doing that." And she's like, "Oh, no, it's okay." I said, "I know, but you shared with me, and that's your story to share. That wasn't my place." And then I went up to the therapist, and I'm like, I'm gonna loop about this all week, so I just want you to know I caught it, and I told her, and now I'm addressing you. That I do know discretion. I needed
Yeah.
her to know, and I saw what that shouldn't. And I'm like, but that is why we're here. It was a suicide event, awareness event, but still it wasn't my place.
Right.
So, but addressing it quickly,
Right.
let it go,
Right.
and that's what we need to learn how to do, right?
And I'll share with you, Anita, one of the techniques that I have learned and share with my clients
Mhm.
too is called stop, challenge, and choose.
Mm.
When you're in a situation that's stressful,
Mhm.
maybe you're having words with, your husband, your boyfriend, maybe you're tempted to buy that jelly donut at the store, whatever it
Yeah.
is to stop. Just stop, take a deep breath, kind of center yourself. If need be, have a big drink of water. Stop before you
Mm.
react. And then, secondly, is to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself and ask yourself, what is the outcome that I want to have happen?
Mhm.
And then, thirdly, is to make that choice of how you're going to react.
Mm.
Very simple,
Yes.
but it's a mantra that I try to ingrain in my mind's eye, my head to really.
It's a great one, and everybody should do it because, like I said, it takes 7 seconds for somebody to consider and to commit suicide.
Oh,
And the same applies with that jelly donut and, the other decisions that we make.
mhm.
We're fast acting. We live in a fast acting society. Everything is instant with our phones. And so, we don't stop and think a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So I love that. Thank you for that.
And I want to share with you, you kind of touched on this too, but people, especially at our age,
Mhm.
they have their old habits
Mhm.
of thinking, we
Yes.
call them, and they get to a point where they settle. They think that this is just the way my life is going to be. I have to live being 30, 40, 100 pounds overweight because I've tried every other program and it's not worked for me.
Yeah.
So this is just who I am.
Yeah.
Or I'm stuck in this dead end relationship, but I don't have the wherewithal to get out of it. I have to stay here. And to know that you are able to get beyond that scenario, whatever it is, it's not working for you, is a wonderful ray of hope that we give people.
Mhm.
And I'm super excited, Anita. I want to share one other program that we're just rolling out,
Okay.
where we can assess one's habits.
Mhm.
There are 18 different habits of thinking that we have.
Mhm.
And by taking an online assessment, you can understand where your habits of thinking are in those 18 areas. And then you can be guided by another coach in our program to understand your habits individually
Mhm.
and how you can shift to getting to a better place for yourself.
Okay. So is there a way they can take this quiz without being in the In a program or
Absolutely.
Oh, how can
Yeah,
they do that?
the assessment is free, and then you would be invited to a debrief
Mhm.
call via Zoom, so there would be other people on the call. But it's very insightful to really
Yeah.
dig deep, dig within, and really understand what your current habits of thinking are.
Oh, I love personality profile tests. So that's just another form of one,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
the habit. So
yeah.
yeah, because we do have blind spots
Mhm.
and we think we're one way, but we're really not a lot of the time, or there's the blind spot.
Well, like my friend April, my mentor
Mhm.
and my good friend, um, she was age 60, I think, when she found this program. And she was overweight. She was working 3 jobs. She was divorced, no children, but working 3 jobs just to stay afloat. And she
Yeah.
didn't like going to any of those jobs.
Yeah.
But she felt she had to settle because nothing had worked for her before until she found this program and learned that a better life is possible for her.
That's why she was so happy.
She now she does it, so beauty of it is we can do it remotely.
Yeah.
She travels the world. She
Wow.
travels the world and is living a life where she's really I wish I had a picture of her right now, I'll show it to you sometime, but she's aging in reverse. She's now age 70,
Yes.
and my gosh,
That's what I'm hoping for me.
it's possible.
Yeah,
It's
that I'm
possible.
living the life of my dreams, serving and
No
that
kidding.
yeah, and that people could see that light. But I think that's what they talk about, right? That light. That's what you saw when you were sitting across the table from her.
Definitely.
You saw that light in her and you wanted it.
Yeah.
But I do want to touch on something else, your faith. You said your parents were so faithful that it gave you faith. And I need people to know a little bit more about that. Like, you know, I don't sitting in prayer or a church or what did you do to stay connected to your source, your higher power?
So faith is a very personal
Yes, of
thing,
course.
right?
Mhm.
Right. I was raised as a very staunch Lutheran,
Mhm.
raised in that church. And I do believe because of what happened with my grandmother at an early age, um, it drove me away from
Of
that faith.
course. Of course.
And especially because I saw her every Sunday sitting in the first pew with her flowery dress on and her gloves, hands folded. And she was
Prim and
just the
proper.
epitome of, a very religious elderly lady. And me knowing her dark secrets, it's like, how can you proclaim to be so religious when you brought so much harm?
Yeah.
I struggled with that for a long
I'm
time.
sure.
So, yes, I have a deep faith in a higher being.
Mhm.
I don't follow a particular religion like the
Mhm.
Lutheran
Mhm.
teachings, but it's very personal to me and it's meaningful to
Yes.
me.
Well, I think that's what faith is, right? It is a personal relationship. I don't think it should be tied to a religion or tied to a church, a structure. It has to be from within. So,
Hmm.
how do you personally stay connected? Because it is God, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's God, I'm assuming, because you were raised Lutheran.
Right.
So, how do you stay connected to God personally yourself?
I think it's just for me, and again, this may seem simplistic,
Mhm.
but it's learning how to really appreciate the little things in life
Mhm.
that really become the big
Yeah.
things in life.
Yes.
Since the passing of my father and my 2 siblings, I've learned this, whether it's true or not, but I'd like to believe that it is
Mhm.
so. That if you find a stray feather, bird's
Oh,
feather out, on your lawn, and I found them 3 different feathers at different times where I was just dealing with some emotional trauma,
mhm.
right? And to me, it was like a sign, like that's dad.
Yeah.
That's dad reaching out to say it's
Yes.
okay.
I absolutely believe that 110%. And it's super funny because I just, I did a podcast with my girlfriend and she released it today. And I said the same thing that we have to be open to seeing the small signs from God
Hmm.
and from our angels and from spirit and not chalk it off that, ugh, it's just a coincidence,
Yeah.
but to believe that feeling that we have, because I believe if we see it, how many times do you see feathers? Do you
Yeah.
always think about them? No, but that time you see that feather and you think about them, it's because
It's a
I
connection.
believe they
Yeah.
sent that feather. Like they know you were going to catch it, or maybe you needed to see it at that time. And I just, it's so important that people start noticing those things. I totally agree. they need these big grand gestures. Well, God's not going to throw down lightning, not
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
He may.
Yeah. You're not
But
going to win the lottery tomorrow.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But yeah, to notice those small things and
And to come from a place of gratitude,
mhm.
and that's what has really shifted for me too from the time when I was Eeyore,
Yeah.
just reacting to life's events is knowing that I can be empowered to make things happen for the better for me.
And you did. You made
Yeah.
that call
Yeah.
and now you're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you started a new career at what age? I mean, geez,
Yeah.
and like you said, she's 70 and she is just doing her thing. And
Yeah.
and I love that because so many people, like you said, they settle. And but tell us what you guys teach as far as mindset, right? Because it's the words we speak.
Mhm.
If we think we're always going to be this way, then we're always going to be this
That
way.
negative, I have to, I need to, I'm supposed to. A small shift you can make is I want to, I choose to. Just a positive shift on how the story that you tell yourself,
Mhm.
right, can make a huge difference. And if it's done just incrementally,
Mhm.
that's all you need, just a millimeter of improvement. And once you get there, then it's another millimeter,
Mhm.
right? We're not talking about a grandiose
Yeah.
change, but you will be able to look back in a short period of time and recognize the significant shifts that you've made to better your life.
Absolutely. I agree. So I I want to touch on just how your mom dealt with your siblings passing because we have, people who are watching of all ages and everybody's in their own situation. So maybe since your mom was so strong and you said you learned from her example, can you kind of share a little bit of how she processed and navigated that situation? I mean, you were all older, so I know you did yourselves, but
She's it's unending, especially to experience the loss of a child.
mhm.
And, my sister Julie, who died at 15 months of age on Christmas Day,
Mhm.
my mom's favorite day of the year, she still deals with that to this
Yeah.
day. And my brother and my sister, like I said, my sister's passing was a little easier to understand because
Mhm.
she told us her story. But mom still struggles with my brother, Robert,
Yeah.
and why and why. And for her, I know she does have a deep seated belief in her faith.
Mhm.
So that's very important to her.
Mhm.
Um, and she goes to that, I'm sure, quite often.
Yeah.
I do wonder too how much of it she has just put in that box, turned the key, and locked it away. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of that. And I feel for her for having to have those thoughts that just linger with her.
Yeah. I do love how you still talk about your sister, even though she was only 15 months old, which, obviously shows that you guys maybe celebrated birthdays or just always, had conversation. And I want people to know that because they'll put it in a box. A lot of people
Mhm.
put death in a box or they put that memory in a box, but I don't think they realize how healing it is to talk about it
Yeah,
and to continue to celebrate the time that we did have with
definitely.
these
Yeah.
individuals. So, do you do any of that for your brother, or do you do that? Is that something you practice in your home, celebrating birthdays or acknowledging them on holidays? Or
Yeah, definitely we do that, of course, on social media. I'm mostly
mm-hmm,
on Facebook.
mm-hmm,
And growing up in Colorado and now living here in California, um, when I moved, I would go back frequently, but I have a many people who still live in the area where I grew up and we're tightly connected with. And we're deeply touched by the passing of, my siblings
mm-hmm,
and my father
yeah,
too. So there's always some mention around birthdays or holidays or remember when, look at this photo from years ago.
yeah. And it's nice that they know they're safe to do that too with
Yeah.
you guys. So, if you could let them, our audience,
Mhm.
we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon, but if you could leave them with anything, um, I did want you to just talk about how the diet you said helped you with your stress, because I think that's highly important for people to know that their food affects their mind.
Oh my gosh, very much so. And I mean, it's a lot to tackle
Mhm.
on your own. Say if you went to the doctor and the doctor gave you orders, Anita, you have to lose X number of pounds,
Mhm.
and you're faced wondering, well, how am I going to do that on my own when this is what my routine is?
Mhm.
This is the types of meals that I'm used to preparing
Yeah.
and whatnot. So having that guidance from a coach that is aligned with a reputable program
Mhm.
who can show you the results and develop a plan that works for you,
Mm.
that brings structure to your life
Yes.
and becomes a habit, that it's not so difficult as when you're trying to do it on your own.
Yeah, it's not so daunting
No.
because, oh my gosh, meal prep and all these things, it can be very daunting. And then when you don't even know really what to put in it,
Right.
or if you're really doing all this work to get the goal you you have set for yourself, or if you're just going through the motions.
Yeah, and if I may mention too that it's become more and more of a practice for people to use the GLP-1 weight loss drugs like Ozempic,
Yes,
Wegovy, et
yes,
cetera.
yes.
Those do serve a purpose for people who need that jump start to lose weight.
Yeah.
However, what they're not getting from their medical doctor is a nutrition advice
Yeah.
and knowledge that they are going to be losing an incredible amount of muscle
Mhm.
mass on that journey. And two, it's not sustainable for
Right.
most people to be able to pay for those drugs on a regular
And
basis.
we don't know the outcome of those drugs in 10, 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
So, the easy fix is not always easy, because down the line you could be suffering more than you'd even imagine,
Yeah.
because how do you know that the effect is going to be on your body? And everybody's body's different.
Yeah.
But if you start healthy, then you end healthy.
Yeah.
And like you said, it also clears up your mind. You
Yeah.
start thinking differently. You start
Definitely.
empowering yourself. You see the
Definitely.
change and feel a little more powerful, and you can take on the world
Yeah.
because you did that, the thing you thought you'd never be able to do, right? So now, since we have to wrap up, if you could leave our audience with anything to better themselves, or to feel confident to take on this journey, or even if it's how to cope with the loss of a sibling, just whatever you feel like God's calling on your heart to leave with them today.
Sure. Sure. I want to go back briefly to people who are using the GLP-1 weight loss
Hmm.
drugs, is that we work with those people as well. And what we help them do is develop a diet that is high in protein
Hmm.
because that's what they need when
Okay.
they don't have a very big appetite most of
Yes.
the time. So they're not, maybe they're still eating the things that were unhealthy for them. So we work with them to improve their nutrition. And secondly, work with them to not lose the significant muscle mass because
Okay.
that's so important as we get older
Yes, we
to
need it
maintain the muscle mass that we have.
for sure.
So the last comment I guess I would like to
Mhm.
make, it kind of circles back to what we've been talking about. But know that whatever is going on in your life, no matter how deep and dark the struggle is, you don't have to go it alone. And it's better if you don't try to go it alone.
Amen.
To address it, find somebody that you trust and want to work with,
Hmm.
and they'll walk beside you and help you get to that place where you want to be. And it's possible.
Yeah,
It's
it's
possible.
possible. But it all starts with a phone call,
That's
right?
right.
Make the call. Whoever that person is for you, make the call, and one step at a time after that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, like my foundation, one step at a time, one heart at a
I love that. I
time.
love that.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you,
Thank you,
Jeanie.
Anita. Oh,
I mean, it
time
was,
flew. I
I
just love it.
know, and there was just so much to
Yeah.
cover. I hope it kind of flows, because it was a lot to cover, but it was all such good stuff, and things that need to be talked
Yeah.
about, you
Thank you
know.
for letting me share.
Oh
Thank you.
God, thank you for trusting me. Really, it's always a blessing when I'm trusted with people's sacred stories,
Yeah.
because it's very personal, and And so, yeah, it's hopefully it helps somebody out there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
guys. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much. See you next time on the other side.